Hello and welcome to Taylor Talks Comics. I'm Taylor. I've got a great book to show off for you today. It's another artist edition. This one is Spider-Man, the Todd McFarlane collection. This book is massive. It's beautiful. A must-have for any Todd McFarlane fan. Stay tuned and be sure to watch the video all the way through. And we're back. So we're going to show off the Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man Artist Edition. Excuse me. If you watched my previous video on the David Mazzucchelli Batman Year 1 Artist Edition, then you'll know that the trim size for this is very similar. But I do want to show off in case you haven't watched that video, which please go watch that video. And give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. But I just want to show off the trim size of this because this is a bigger one. Here's the Dave Cockrum's X-Men Artist Edition. There is no standard size for the Artist Edition format. Because what they do is that they print these the size of the original art. So Todd McFarlane was drawing some of these pages on pages that were this big. And Dave Cockrum was drawing his pages this big. So it's as if you have the original art in hand. They wanted to make it true to size. So this is, if there was a standard size, you typically find artist editions to be more of the size of Dave Cockrum's, especially later volumes. I was actually kind of surprised Todd McFarlane drew on such big paper. I didn't realize he did that. Because after a certain point in the 60s or 70s, artists, primarily in the big two, Marvel, DC, started drawing on 11 by 17 paper, which is what you get with this format. Some would opt for bigger paper, which Todd McFarlane obviously did. And so did David Mazzucchelli. But to show off other books to compare the trim size, let me get a omnibus edition. The first omnibus edition I pulled off the shelf was Fantastic Four by Hickman. But you can see, based on the trim size here, much, much bigger and taller than it's not quite, but it feels like it's almost twice the size and height of an omnibus. And then let's spin this around. So this is beautifully designed. I do want to point out, you can see the corner here is a little dinged up. Don't expect that for OPB. OrganicPriceBooks.com, they only ship things with love and care. This is a review copy. So I'm assuming they had a damaged copy at the warehouse they sent to me to do a review of. So this was sent to me for a review copy. I'm not upset or anything, and nor should I be. But I just want to point that out in case you see that on video. I don't want you to expect Organic Price Books to send your copies of that, because these are all sent in protected boxes and everything, so they'll be good to go. They ship everything with love and care. And if you have any issues receiving a book that's damaged or whatnot, they have great customer service as well, so no frets there. You can see this book does come with like a glossy finish on the Venom aspect to it, but does maintain the characteristics of the original art. You can see like the strokes of the marker in there and the pin marks and the blue line method that he used on the Spider-Man there. But we'll get more. This image is on the inside of the book too, so we'll dive more into that when we open the book. Here's the spine. Really cool image of Spidey upside down on the top of it. Todd McFarlane Spider-Man Artist Edition, Marvel IDW. And on the back of the book, you get a really cool image of Spider-Man next to some gargoyles. With Toddy Mac's, the Todd father's signature there. Open this baby up, and we get an image of the Spider-Man Hulk crossover by Todd McFarlane. This image right here alone, and then some of the images we'll see in here, makes me wish we had a Todd McFarlane Hulk Artist Edition. If you're not familiar with Todd McFarlane's career, he cut his teeth at Marvel. Really, the run that helped build his name up was his Hulk run that he did with Peter David. And then after that, he did Spider-Man, which then sent him in a trajectory, making him the most famous modern comic book name we have. I don't know. But this is a blown up image. So on these end papers here, which I'll flip over to the back here, they always do a great job of this, and I love this because they blow up a panel or an image even bigger than the original size. So it's like the biggest you'll ever see Todd McFarlane's artwork probably look, and it looks brilliant. You can see the blue line method he uses, which if you're not familiar, some artists will do their pencils with blue line because that doesn't reproduce when you then scan it in for the final copy. So all these blue lines will go away. They won't be red when they scan it in and copy it. The only thing that'll be left will be the ink lines. So that's you can see that he used the blue line method on this, and most of this actually, this book. But oh, I skipped a page. Here's the opening title page. Cool image of Spidey there. Another cool image of Spidey with some birds flying over him. Here's the credits you get here. Scott Dunbier is the director of special projects for IDW, but he's also the editor of this project, and he's the creator of the artist edition format and the editor of all of them for IDW. But now he has left IDW, and he's started his own company called Act 4, where he'll be doing artist editions as well as some special collections of comics, which is exciting. But just want to point that out. Proofreader Scott Tipton, and then Randall Dock was the designer of this book. All the special thanks here, I recognize some of those names. Holy crap. These are typically people that scanned in artwork for Scott to use for these collections, like usually the owners of the original art. And here is all of the art that you'll see in this book. And I want to point out that this does not collect entire stories and subsequent runs. Like there's no like complete issues in here. It's all just a collection of random pages from these issues that Todd McFarlane worked on. This used to be called an artifact edition when they would do this. There used to be a distinction at IDW. The artifact edition was like the collection of random pieces of art. The artist edition was when it collected a complete story. For whatever reason, they ended that designation and just across the line called them all artist editions. I'm not sure why. It was kind of nice to have that distinction, especially me as a consumer that really likes to read these stories in the artist edition format. Now it's kind of hard to, you can find out which ones collect complete stories, and it's not that hard, honestly, but a little bit easier to decipher. But I digress. A couple things I want to point out in this credits, though. Letters by Rick Parker. Rick Parker is an incredible letterer. He also had a great run on Beavis and Butthead, which I love, from Marvel. Those comics are so underrated. If you ever find a back issue of Beavis and Butthead from Marvel the 90s, Rick Parker did all the cartooning for them. Highly recommend them, even if you're not a Beavis and Butthead fan. If you're just a fan of like funny comics. But his lettering in Todd McFarlane's run really made it a complete package. So I just want to point that out. Scripts by David McFARLANE on all of these, except until you get to the adjectiveless Spider-Man, which we'll talk about. All the art by Todd McFarlane unless otherwise noted. So that means pencils and inks. So you'll see on some of these pages, the first issue we have here is Spider-Man 299. The inks were by Bob McLeod. And then you don't see any. And then Todd McFarlane starts inking himself. Inks by Joe Rubinstein on 304. And then he inks himself. And then we get to Todd McFarlane's adjectiveless Spider-Man. So if you're not familiar with the lineage as well, Todd McFarlane started on, I don't think it was 299. He started earlier than that. But he started on the David McFARLANE run of Amazing Spider-Man all the way through, I think, to 328. Might have been his last issue. But then he got his own ongoing Spider-Man. So the first ever adjectiveless Spider-Man. We've had Web of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Marvel Team Up were previous Spider-Man runs. We never had an adjectiveless one, which just means the title was just Spider-Man. No spectacular adjective or amazing adjective or whatever. So he started that run all on his own. He did all the writing and inking, and at one point did coloring on one of these issues, but we won't see that in this book. And then Rick Parker stayed on for lettering. A great opening spread. Here's a great example of what made Todd McFarlane special for Spider-Man. We had, like, Michael Golden, I guess, is credited for creating the webbing like this. They call it spaghetti webbing or whatever you want to call it, where the webbing is like all, strewn and kind of, what do you call that? Fraying, like a rope. I guess Michael Golden kind of started that, but McFarlane maybe popularized it, but he also always drew Spider-Man in these very dynamic poses, which was always really exciting. Here's the introduction. Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man Artist Edition is part of an ongoing series, one dedicated to showcasing extraordinary artists in a format as special as their work deserves. All right, so right away, I want to point out that you can see some of these pages don't fill up the whole page. So why would they make the book so big? Because he didn't draw on, all the pages they drew on were not fully this trim size. This was more in line with what I showed with the Dave Cockrum X-Men one, were the smaller pages. Now I love that they collected this early issue of $2.99 that has the Bob McLeod inks, because you can really see and compare what made it special from when Todd McFarlane was doing his own pencils, or I mean his own inks, and when he wasn't doing his own inks. So this is Todd McFarlane when he's not doing his own inks. Very much more subdued and more of that kind of that Neil Adams house style that lots of artists worked in. Here's the first appearance or image of Venom in that panel. Great arresting image there. And then this is the first one where he does his own inks. This page, or this literally this page, I guess, but this issue. And the lettering by Rick Parker again. The title lettering right here adds a characteristic to it, but also the credit lettering right here. Really, Rick Parker's lettering it's almost like he saw, because that's not what his typical lettering looks like. He was a letterer that was able to work based on who his artists were and that kind of thing. So he saw what Todd McFarlane was doing with his art, where he's going for more of this horror vibe for Spider-Man, which I really loved, which then bled into what you see with Spawn. And Rick Parker was able to match that, to make the issues special and make them a complete package. So I just want to point out that Rick Parker's lettering in this is amazing. Not only is lettering like the typical word balloons and captions and all that jazz, but like the title lettering and the credit lettering and sound effects and things. Here's a really cool panel because you can see the collage here. Image of Todd McFarlane would put behind Spidey here. And this is issue number 300, which is like a really famous issue of Amazing Spider-Man. There's Eddie Brock. Then here's Eddie Brock as a priest, which is an arresting image, as my voice cracked there. Arresting image of Eddie Brock with some, I don't know, almost like some Dave Cronenberg body horror imagery there. Here's Todd McFarlane drawing the Fantastic Four, for Freedom's Plaza, but also drawing the Thing, which is my favorite Marvel character, so that's always fun. You can see too, so the Artist Edition, one of the great things about it is all the charm and stuff of these original art pages. You can see all the notations that he would draw up here, the book number, the issue number, the month page, and then maybe a little notes right here. It says Web of Spider-Man number 39, which I think is telling the editor which one to point out here for the caption. When Marvel would always do those asterisk thing where they lead to something else. But you can also see some of the characteristics in the artwork. Like over here, this is like whited out. So Todd might have drawn this guy's head a little bit differently and then wanted to redo it. Up here, it looks like a word balloon or thought balloon was up here, and they whited that out. You can almost read what it said, but they just edited that part out. For whatever reason, they didn't want you to know Mary Jane's thoughts in that panel. And Todd McFarlane would sign all these pages too, so you get his signature. But that's like the charm of these, is seeing like the whiteout and the characteristics of seeing like what the artist would be thinking in the process of making these pages. And when there's no color on it, you can kind of see their technique and things, which if you're an artist in your own right, you can take something from those. Shout out to David Letterman, fellow Hoosier. And then you'll notice this too. So some of these pages, like this one is more yellowed than this one. And like I said, Scott Dunbier, I always kind of joke that he's like the Indiana Jones of original comic book art. He's always going across the world trying to find these original pages, because what happens is these artists, especially early in their career, would have these original art pages, and then they become like a secondary income for them to sell these original art pages at conventions and whatnot. So they would take a stack of these at a convention, sell them off, and you imagine like, 30 different people buy one page. The original art's dispersed everywhere. which is why you don't get complete issues in these two. I assume that Scott Dunbier, if he had his say in things, would probably collect complete issues, but they're just not possible to find. So anyways, what I was getting to is that whoever bought this page probably didn't store it in a great way, or maybe had it in a frame with sun shining on it or something, and that's why it's yellowed more than like this page is more white. I'm going to guess that these were owned by different people. And you can see it also is interesting. So this page is completely yellowed, but the whiteout has stayed. So that you could find out which media is when you're drawing with, and the artwork is more archival or holds up more than others. So it's interesting that that didn't yellow, but the rest of the page did. One thing in this run too, anytime you see someone with a cape, so here's the Prowler, like this is like a early prototype of Spawn. So like, and that was like the big revelation I had the most recent time I read this, because I read this run of Amazing Spider-Man and the subsequent Adjective of Spider-Man so many times. I talked about this on my channel. It was probably the run of comics that got me hooked on comics for the long term. I grew up reading comics all the time, my brother's back issues or G.I. Joe issues, Transformers, or whatever. But as when my older brother bought me a trade paperback of the TODD McFARLANE run, that I got hooked instantly. And then I've been reading comics ever since. But in this most recent read through I had of this, when I had the omnibuses, that was like the revelation I had. It was like the Prowler, and I think the Shriek was the other character. They have capes. You can see TODD McFARLANE working out those kinks of what we would see in his Spawn run later. Here's a great panel layout with all this great webbing on here. TODD McFARLANE really working on his ideas and becoming his own. Like this is the run where you see TODD McFARLANE become the TODD McFARLANE we all know and love. Here's that in paper. Was that the in papers? No, that was just a blown up image we saw. Yeah, but that's the Spider-Man with the gargoyles. Oh, there's the Shriek character. So not quite the Spawn cape, but you can see him working it out with all the hair and stuff. Like this is like early prototypes for what we'd see in Spawn. And I was always a big fan of the just the mundane melodrama that TODD McFARLANE would draw for Mary Jane and Peter, who have quite the roller coaster of a relationship throughout this run as well. Which I guess they have a roller coaster of a relationship in all the runs, but you know what I mean. A great splash page here in front of this building. Again, the great Rick Parker title lettering right there. We start to get some of these vertical panels from TODD Mac that would become his signature. There's great Rick Parker sound effects lettering right there. Here's like where we first... So this is such a signature TODD McFARLANE trope of these like profile views of someone's face. This isn't quite we normally see like a little bit more of the face there, but that's like an early piece of it. There's some great horror imagery right there. That's like one of the revelations I had too, is that it was really TODD Mac putting in the horror imagery of into Spider-Man, which I think was something that people don't give Steve Ditko credit for. I think Steve Ditko had like a lot of that creepiness in his early run, and TODD McFARLANE would go on to work with a lot of the same villains as the Steve Ditko creations in this run, not counting like the Prowler and the Shriek and Hydra here, but we would get like the Green Goblin and Lizard. I think Mysterio pops in one. Again, some great title lettering by Rick Parker. Here's another collage image. So the background here is a collage, like a photo collage with Spider-Man pasted on top of it. All right, I want to flip to the adjective with Spider-Man. Oh, here's 328. So here's the last part. Was there a... No, okay. I thought there was a fold-out. Spider-Man 328, where we see the Hulk. I always loved TODD McFARLANE's Hulk, too. He always had like that... the Neanderthal kind of brow to the Hulk, which I think is like necessary. I want the Hulk to look like a monster. I don't want him to look like a handsome guy like he did in the Gary Frank run. I want him to look like a big monster. And Todd McFarlane always did a great job of that. All right, here's the actual Spider-Man run. So we get the cover image to separate it in the book. And the opening page is Lizard, which I used to have an action figure of this Lizard when I was a kid. I think it was sold as being part of the animated series, but it was totally the Todd McFarlane design for that character. And speaking of the horror imagery, having the black borders on here was a choice by Todd McFarlane, which I think added to like the darkness and the spookiness of this run. That was another revelation too. It's like I was a huge fan of the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s, and they took so much from specifically the McFarlane and McFarlane run of Spider-Man for that TV series, down to the way the characters spoke and everything. So if you're a fan of that, then I think you'd enjoy this run. Here's the a signature panel that McFarlane would do frequently in his Spawn run. Again, the great profile image here. Here's all these vertical panels, which is another thing. And that's the one thing that separated Todd McFarlane from his peers at the time. And then things that a lot of the Image founding fathers would do is just like these totally different panel layouts that would be like frowned upon back in the Silver Bronze Age of Marvel. And just being like really creative with things. Another great profile image right there. Spider-Man with the ripped up mask. Lizard in the shadows there looks great. Here's a great 2-page spread with Ghost Rider and Hobgoblin and Spider-Man. Ghost Rider on his bike. This is such a page that just explodes of the 90s, right? Like this is 90s era comics. Great lettering by Rick Parker. There's another Ghost Rider right there. Right here. I love that. I wish I had a copy. I don't have a copy of the omnibus anymore. Of the printed page to see what that looks like after it's colored. Because it just looks so sketchy. The webbing would just get insane though. And I just loved it. That's one thing, the trade paperback I had that my brother bought me that I talked about. On the back of it, like the big blurb caption would say, like, it said something like, they even talked about the way he drew webs or something like that. Wolverine. You don't get a lot of Toddy Mac doing Wolverine. Oh, there's Wolverine. Look at the cigarettes bent too. He's like chewing on it almost. You won't see that in any modern Marvel comics now that Disney owns them. I wonder if that's Scott Dunbier owning that? I don't know. Great image of Spider-Man and Wolverine. That's the thing about the 90s too, is like you always had Spider-Man or Ghost Rider or Wolverine cameoing in all these issues. Some more great title lettering by Parker. So it's a really cool artist edition, especially if you're a fan of Toddy Mac profile image. To see his art progress through the years of Marvel. Literally from like the beginning of his Spider-Man run through the end of it. All that great webbing. And then here's some covers. Here's the cover of 299, which is the first issue they showed. And they even have a table of contents for the cover issues, which they have. They don't have every cover there. And then, okay, so they don't have every cover, but they have quite a few. I think that's the cover of the trade paperback. I think they reused that image for the trade paperback I had. There's a 300, the famous 300 issue. Which is funny that they went to 301 with the same pose of Spider-Man. That they got away with that. I don't know. Again, that crazy cape. Here's a cool thing too, Todd McFarlane. So this was always the box for newsstand distribution. Would have a barcode there. But if you bought it on the direct market with at a comic book shop or something, that would either be blank, or if the artist was creative and kind of took advantage of that, they would draw in there. And Todd McFarlane would always draw a cool image in there, whether it be like Spider-Man or the page or the issue number in there. So it's a cool little added touch. Like he drew a Spider-Man, drew Hobgoblin. Cool little added touch that's almost like the corner box that the Silver Age guys used to draw That I just love that Todd McFarlane was, that thoughtful in using all the space that he had. Here's the cover image of this book, which you can see. And it looks like, since this is lighter on his hands, I want to say that those are paste overs, that maybe he didn't like the way he drew the hands originally and then redrew them. Otherwise, I don't know why those are lighter than the rest of his body. But that's what I assume happened there. Todd McFarlane in this one, so he must have not drawn anything in there. So he gave this cover to Glenn, the infamous Lubinsky cover. I gave that to him. I don't know. Here's a cool image of Hulk he drew here. Venom's in this one. And then here's the, that's not the, is that the end papers? I don't think it is. No, it's not. I also do love the reworking of the title lettering there, which I don't know if that's Rick Parker or Todd McFarlane doing that. But even the corner box, I always love when they play with the title lettering on the image. Here's the famous issue, #1 of Spider-Man, which at the time of the release of this was the best-selling comic book of all time. It then got surpassed by X-Force #1 and then X-Men #1. Yeah, the figure I had for Lizard, which I probably still have somewhere. I think my son played with it when he was a kid. Or when he was younger, sorry. He's still a kid. But I think you can almost pose it in this exact pose. Just great lettering by Rick Parker. Just really want to emphasize his contribution to this run. And then these were reprints of Marvel, or no, this is a fan magazine. This is Marvel Age, the magazine. This was like their Wizard magazine they had from Marvel. These were the reprints, the Marvel Tales. So these would collect classic issues of Spider-Man, like Ditko era or Bronze Age era. And Todd McFarlane did some of these covers. Spider-Man and Iceman and Angel. There's cool Spider-Man with the classic era X-Men. This is amazing. This is like one of the most famous pieces. Probably, I mean, it's either that cover or the Spider-Man etched to the #1 cover. Might be the most famous covers in this entire book. Or most famous pieces of art in the entire book, if I can find it. Okay. Right there, either that cover or this one. But this one's been homaged. Well, I mean, I guess they both have been homaged to death, but this one's been homaged a ton. And just a reflection of Hulk. And then I love this note here. Some kind of production trick for Hulk's reflection. So whether, I don't know if he's wanting like a chromium cover or whatever he was wanting for that. And then the back page with a little bit of bio on TODD Mac. And then there's the end papers. So really a great book, great collection. A must-have for any Todd McFarlane fan or any Spider-Man art fan. But thank you guys for watching. You can get this book for $2 off at OrganicPriceBooks.com if you use my promo code TaylorTalksComics, all one word. Or if you order this and 3 more books, or any 4 books you want. The larger order, you can save 5% off with my other promo code, TTC, ship it together. Thank you guys for watching. Comment down below. I reply to all comments. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Keep reading comics.